Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Meet the Maker at the Goldsmiths Centre as part of our Getting Started Spotlighting programme. I'm really thrilled to have two more of our makers who've taken part in Spotlighting, which is an evolution of Getting Started, our week-long business programme. We've got Lisa Mortimer and Genevieve Schwartz with us this afternoon, who have kindly agreed to share the thinking and ideas and processes behind the beautiful jewellery that they both make. Welcome, Genevieve. It's lovely to have you here. We are looking at this image, which is one of your product shots that shows two of your beautiful rings on a model, and immediately one is struck by the gorgeous colours of the stones that you use. Could you tell us a bit about what inspires your collection and indeed the two pieces that we are seeing being worn by the model here?
Of course. So these pieces have become quite central to my business since I started just about a year ago. And it was kind of a happy coincidence, actually, because when I left my last job, this was the first piece I drew in my sketchbook. I'd seen a watermelon tourmaline before, and for some reason, I was really drawn to the bicolour nature of the stones. They're so engaging, they're so interesting, and I think a lot of people who are used to seeing gemstones in jewellery aren't used to seeing a gemstone that's half one colour and half another. So it was the first piece I made when I went full-time self-employed. And since then, I've used that idea and I've tried to expand it into, more ideas. And the one on the left, you can see the band kind of is made up of three separate rows of pave, which is those small round stones, and that continues the colour gradation. So it's become central. It's inspired because they look so much like sweets themselves. That's where the watermelon sugar name came from. But also it's a nod to the very famous Harry Styles song of the same name. So
lovely cultural references. And then we get to see this one in detail. I mean, I'm always bowled over by the colours of the stones that you use. Can you tell us a bit about the process of sourcing them and then designing? I mean, do you start with the stone and take it from there? How do you develop your ring designs?
Yeah, so I have a great supplier I use, and he has amazing stones. As you can see here, this one's really beautiful. So I definitely start with the stones themselves, and then with every stone, because they're so unique, each one is really, really like no two are alike. So with this one, I could see that there was the nice vibrant pink, the nice vibrant green at the top, and then there was this kind of mid-tone in the middle, which I really wanted to kind of exaggerate and exploit. So that was where that kind of lighter row of pink came in the middle. But yeah, it always tends to start with the stone itself, because I think people are really drawn to individual stones as well. So my customers get to look at the whole range and choose from there.
Absolutely. And this is the watermelon sugar ring in detail as well, where you have this graduation of colour that goes around the band, which is just stunning. And the proportions of the stone as well to the band is really beautiful. When you're thinking about the look and feel of your designs, are there any things that you particularly draw from in terms of inspirations? I know in the notes that you gave me, you mentioned the Art Deco period. What do you look to feed your imagination?
Well, it's really funny you asked that. I think it's always really hard to kind of decide or figure out where your inspiration comes from. I've definitely always been quite drawn to kind of clean lines, and I think that jewelry in and of itself always appealed to me because it can be quite regimented. Obviously not for everyone, but my style definitely is. And I did a shoot in September of last year to kind of bring together all the work I did over the last 12 months. And as part of that, I hired a set designer and photographer that I worked with, and I kind of gave them all my mood board imagery that I'd grouped together from Pinterest. And it was them actually who said to me, they were like, oh, Art Deco is definitely your inspiration, isn't it? And I from then realized that, yes, I guess it is. It really is. And if you look at my boards, it's like very solidly like Art Deco furniture and bottles and glasses. But I didn't realize until they said it to me, which was a really interesting experience as well. And I definitely see it as we go through these slides. You can see these clean lines come everywhere and these repeated patterns. And yeah, in this one is a great example of that. These kind of sun rays that I've put in between some of the stones. I really love the way that the light reflects, not just off the stones, but also off of the metal. So I use a lot of kind of flat, plain, polished sections in my work as well.
Yes, the colour in this one is absolutely dazzling, and you can see that sun ray idea. And I think that, you know, they're really arresting for that reason. Colour must be really important to you in terms of the playfulness of the designs. Here you've developed the signet ring. What drew you to that form in terms of the design?
Yeah, well, I think signet rings are very popular, and they have been for the last couple of years. Prior to being self-employed, I used to work for a brand, so I'm very used to trend research, trend analysis, things like that. And I think from that research, I realised, you know, these rings are popular for men, they're popular for women, like everyone loves them at the moment. So this was a twist on the signet ring. It was kind of the shape that people are used to seeing, and it's kind of an everyday shape as well. So I think people are less daunted by a ring like this, where it's all kind of enclosed in one space, as opposed to the ring we saw beforehand. And then, yeah, I just wanted to bring lots of colour in. I think I'm really drawn to colour, and the more I design, the more I realise how drawn I am. And yeah, so that was where this one came from.
And then we see a slightly more pared back, but really beautiful stone in this signet design as well. But I noticed that you have used fair trade gold for this particular ring. What was your thinking behind that choice, and how is that sustainability important to your practice?
Yeah, so last year I became aware of the group they've called the Fair Lux group. And they started something called the Fair Lux Pledge, which I was really keen to take part in. And the way that they work is they just try and encourage more sustainable practices for jewellers in the UK and worldwide as well. But the idea is, you know, jewellery as an industry is quite destructive. I think there's no two ways about it. But it's clear that the industry are trying to move in a more sustainable direction. So that's the mission of their organisation, which I love their organisation. I really respect the work they do. So this piece for me was my pledge last year. I knew I wasn't going to be able to do everything at once, but this ring symbolised at least an effort. So the centre stone I sourced from a gem supplier called 1948, and they use only ethically supplied gems. And then the gold for the outside, as you said, is fair trade. So it was my kind of, it's my attempt, you know, it's an early start and I'm getting there, but yeah, just having a go of it. And with all my commissions, I always offer fair trade metals as well if people want to use them.
Yes, I think that's the interesting thing, isn't it? Having that offer available so that people can tailor the commission to their own, to themselves. And then we have a number of your rings displayed in the exhibition, but we don't have a pendant. So when I saw this and your selection of images for today, I was like, "Whoa, this is exciting." Could you tell us a bit about that move into designing pendants too, and this particular design?
Sure, yeah. So I guess, again, it's a lot of colour, and it's trying to bring, well, I think the lines are very clear again. And it was trying to, I think, had it just been one solid colour around the outside, I wasn't really drawn to it enough. And I think putting in the lines, you know, dividing up the sections, it gave me an opportunity to bring in more colour. And also to complement that blue stone in the middle, because it's a versatile colour, that stone, and it can go with so many. So just chose 3 of the ones that I thought were best. And then the idea eventually is to turn this same concept into, by using the watermelon tourmaline stones. So I will have the gradation going around the outside with or without the bars. I don't think those pieces will need the bars, but I did like them. I thought they worked in this piece for the light.
I love, for me, it's that playfulness of the asymmetry and the different number of stones of each colour. And, you know, it sort of captured you off guard a little bit, because on the one hand, you understand that as a traditional form, but you've given it a really great twist. So it's a lovely addition to your range. And then we have this piece here, which I know lots of people have been interested in and talked about in the context of your work. The designs that you've generated as male engagement rings, which I think is really, really fascinating. And I think we probably agree from the other pieces that you've shown us here that they really are not designed, your pieces could be worn by either gender. So I think, but this is really interesting. Tell us about your thinking behind the male engagement ring.
Yeah, so it all started, I guess, about a year ago when I myself got engaged. A lot of people then asked me after I did, they were like, right, he's given you a ring. What are you going to do now? So I think that was where the initial idea stemmed from, was that the idea that, why does only one partner get a ring? Both should. I guess if that's what we do in a modern day age, 21st century woman, why is it only the man that buys the ring? Also, many of my friends, my female friends, proposed to their male partners over lockdown and told me that they've really struggled to find an engagement ring that they would like to give to their male partner. So in the end, they didn't. So I could see there was a market. The men's market is much less saturated than the women's market is in jewellery. So both a market opportunity, but also just a kind of new idea that I'm now seeing more and more of as well in the industry itself.
Well, I think it's a really, really exciting aspect of your work, and really beautiful designs resulting from it too. So Genevieve, where are you based when you're making, where are you producing your work?
So I'm based in London. I'm based in North London. At the moment, I'm currently working from my studio at home. But this year, I am applying for lots of new studio spaces. So that's where I hope to move in the future. But in London, I'll probably stay in London for now.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing your fantastic designs with us today. Thank you so much. So now I'd like to turn to welcome Lisa Mortimer, who is coming to us from slightly further afield. Where are you based, Lisa?
Hi, yes, I'm in West Yorkshire, recently moved there.
And we are seeing you in your studio, I think, today, aren't we?
Yeah, this is where I work, and that's just a messy board full of notes and diaries and dates and things.
We all need one of those. So this afternoon, we're looking at your citrus collection, and we can see on this model photo here, 3 of the designs being worn. And as we will find out through our conversation today, this kind of riff on the similar forms but manifest in different ways, I think is a really interesting aspect of the work that you're making on this theme. Could you tell us a little bit about the inspirations behind the citrus collection?
Yeah, so I basically came up with the design for the necklace, first of all, and that was based on a 10-month camper van trip around Italy. So it basically encapsulates a whole feeling rather than representing one particular thing. So it's to do, obviously because of the name, the citrus collection, it's to do with the shapes within a citrus fruit. But I feel like those same shapes can be found in so many different natural places. So depending on how you put the shapes together, you get a completely different look and feel. And to some people, it might look like something completely different.
So let's take a closer look at the necklace as you're making it. It's wonderful always to get an insight into the process that's led to the final piece. So I mean, well, certainly when I picked up the necklace to install it in the exhibition, my feeling was that it had this beautiful movement to it, and you've created that, haven't you, using a specific approach. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so the main technique is the riveting. So that's how all the hand-pierced individual pieces are held together. So they're not soldered together, so they're riveted, which basically means that each piece slots onto the post of the next one, and that then gets hammered down to spread the metal. So I try and keep the rivet quite loose, because this means that each piece has a lot of movement, and then it can sort of mold to the body of the wearer. It can sit around the neck without leaving gaps, and it just looks like it's meant to be there.
I think that what's really striking about it is that feel and that movement, but also that each individual shape, because you have hand pierced it, is that slightly bit different. It has that sort of the sense of the original inspiration, where each segment of the fruit is slightly different. And then we have this image here which shows your process of working onto the design with this kombu technique. Could you tell us a bit about why you chose to use this with the silver and how that you feel that sort of enhances the design.
Yeah, so it's an ancient Korean technique, which basically means I use very thin 24 karat gold, and that fuses onto a layer of fine silver, which is on the top of the necklace. So the necklace is made of sterling silver, but I have to heat it and then take off all the other alloys from the surface, which then creates a thin layer of fine silver onto the surface. That then fuses with the gold using heat and pressure of a burnisher. I really like this because there's no solder involved, so it's literally just the thinnest gold on top of the silver, which means that you can see all the texture through the gold. And the texture on this is quite important. It's not like a highly polished piece. I wanted it to remain fairly sort of natural looking, and it's actually created using this little wheel here, which is like a frosting wheel. Which kind of reminded me of like the outside of the citrus fruit as well, all the sort of all the slight pitting and the fact that it wasn't completely smooth. And also the gold, the fact that the arrangement is kind of reminded me of like the sunlight coming through the leaves on the citrus trees as you're sitting outside in Italy, and it just, I don't know, it kind of felt like if you look twice, then the pieces of gold might not be in the same place every time.
I think it does absolutely have that feel, and I want to show people a little more of the finished piece, and we'll talk about the beautiful clasps that we're seeing here in a moment. But I think that is such an attractive quality of it, the way you've played with the placement and the form and the shape of the gold, and it does give you that sense of the dappled sunlight. I think it's very evocative. So we're seeing two citrus neck pieces here, and each has a different clasp. So you were telling me that you have challenged yourself in terms of clasp making. So do explain to us how you've approached them and why you've chosen to do that.
Yeah. Although every element of the citrus neck piece is handmade, and obviously the placement of the gold is completely different for each segment even, I wanted to make sure that each one really was different, and I challenged myself to create a different clasp for each citrus neck piece that I've made, which sometimes I regret because it can be quite tricky coming up with the different designs, because they obviously have to still be in keeping with the rest of the necklace. So I take the shapes from the rest of the necklace and sort of use those and echo them as part of the clasp. As you can see on the clasp on the left, the little tongue part is the shape of the little gold pieces, and then the triangular shapes continue onto the clasp as well.
It's really clever, and I love that idea that when you buy a piece of that work, you have your unique clasp, and it's also lovely to see a different clasp at the back of the neck, isn't it? It's a lovely attention to detail.
Yeah, I like the thought that it's not just an afterthought or like something bought. It's actually part of the whole design, and it's quite interesting to have like quite a feature on the back when you just sort of expect the feature to always be on the front.
Yes. So we've displayed the one we have on show so that you can see the clasp, because it is such a lovely feature. So let's see, we've got now your citrus brooch, and I think for me that the inspiration really comes alive in this particular piece, because we're seeing all those segments coming together. Tell us a little bit about your design here.
Yes, well, this brooch, I did want to do something a bit different, because although the pieces, the segments on the necklace, for example, and the earrings and the ring, they all look quite uniform. And with this, I just sort of wanted to be a bit more playful and just make something that does look like it's just been squeezed a bit. And they're not ribbed together, they're folded together, and it's just, I don't know, I feel like it's quite a different piece, but it's a bit of like a statement just to have that. It's a bit fun and summery and joyful, I hope.
Yes, and I think that the way you've approached the double pin on the back means that you can place it in all sorts of different ways on your clothing, which is always a great sign for a brooch. And then we turn to the earrings from the collection, and these have the most gorgeous curve, and you had to evolve your riveting for this. How we, they remind me of a hoop earring, but they're really quite different, aren't they? Tell us about your approach to these.
Yeah, well, I didn't really want to call them a hoop earring, even though they are essentially a sort of hoop shape that goes around your ear, because they do move because they're riveted again. So they do move as you wear them. And yes, I had to definitely adjust the tightness of the rivet and also the shape of each individual segment in order to get the right curve, and obviously to match them as well. It's a bit of a key thing. I've also had to adapt some tools in order to make sure that I can smooth the rivets over and make them comfortable and actually get to the rivets inside the curve.
That's when I get talking about jewellery, it's always one of my favourite parts, is to understand the tools that you've had to make in order to make the pieces. But yeah, the shape of these is really fascinating, and we get a sense of that on the as you've displayed them here on one of your tools, indeed. And then this ring from the collection, again, I think is I don't know, it's one of those things where you can imagine wearing it and you wouldn't be able to resist fiddling with it, because it does have this gorgeous movement, which I think is such a playful approach to designing a ring. And again, this is a different form of riveting to be able to make the ring.
Yes, I mean, this was probably the most challenging piece in terms of, technically, because of having to get inside the ring and having to make sure those rivets are strong enough and smooth enough and comfortable to wear. So yeah, that was another piece that I had to adapt tools for. It does move quite a lot, and it is really fun to fiddle with it whilst it's on your finger.
That's the ultimate joy of some jewelry, isn't it? It's the tactility and the way that you can move it. Do your tourmaline rings come in any other colours apart from green and pink?
They do. So I did one. Well, it really depends on what stones I can find. That's the kind of limitation in a way, or that gives me all the opportunities. So I've got one that I sell in blue and white, or kind of like blue and rose quartz is what it looks like. And then I've just bought some pink and black ones, which are amazing looking. I think they're kind of a unique taste, but I'm really excited to make stuff out of them because I think that'll be great.
Pink and black as well really resonates in the Art Deco sense, doesn't it? That combination is a really really striking one. I would like to ask you both sort of what's next. So you took part in getting started, you've been developing these collections. I'll come to you first, Lisa. What have you got your sights set on next in terms of your making?
Well, I've only recently moved up to West Yorkshire, so I'm sort of trying to get my name out there up here. So I'd like to do sort of some makers fairs and that kind of thing, perhaps in the north. But I think having some exposure from definitely from the Goldsmiths Centre is going to hopefully really help. And I'll definitely be applying for things in the future through the Goldsmiths Centre.
Yeah, so it's interesting, isn't it, moving to a new area? There's a whole other whole network to integrate yourself with, but that's an exciting challenge, I imagine.
Yeah, something fresh almost.
And how about you, Genevieve? We know the stones that you have in your workshop, but what are your sights on?
Well, I think it's very tempting as a designer also to just always want to make, and I think that's what I'm working on at the moment, is obviously making more pieces, because I think it helps with sales, obviously, but also so I can start doing fairs as well, like Lisa was saying. It would be really good to take part in some fairs for some you know, exposure and, you know, to meet clients as well. I think we all really miss meeting people face to face. So I'm applying for lots of fairs this year, and as I said, I'm looking for a studio space at the moment so that I can also kind of build a network. But yeah, and then I have a few more ideas for collection pieces, but I want to kind of slow down on that and maybe push what I have for now and see how I go.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, it sounds like you both have exciting plans in prospect. So yes, Lisa, this one's for you. Will your collection be expanding, new items added to it, or is it now finished and you're moving on to a different theme? So are you still in love with the citrus, or are you moving into other areas?
Well, I've had a little break from the citrus collection for a few months, but after that time, I have actually come up with some new designs. So it's because of the shapes, you can just sort of arrange them, and then the possibilities are endless. So I have got a few more bits, and they are up on my website, but not all of them. And yes, I am working on new ranges that are not to do with the citrus range as well. But I keep dipping back in and creating new pieces just to go with it.
I guess that is the beauty of that particular design, is the way that you can evolve it into different forms. I think that's a really exciting aspect to what you have designed there. Fantastic. Well, I think that it just serves for me to say thank you both for sharing your wonderful work and collections this afternoon. It's been great to get a deeper insight into them. So wishing everybody a good afternoon. Thank you so much, Genevieve. Thank you so much, Lisa. And we hope to see you online again for another Goldsmiths event in the next few weeks. Bye-bye, everybody.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.